Okay, so this is being filmed in about a week before your exam. This is very, very quick, going through section 2, section 5. I'm sorry you won't be able to see the bottom of it sometimes, but I'll talk you through that. Right, individual economic decision making, the law of diminishing marginal utility, you should all know that now. As we consume more of a good, so the utility goes down. This then gets us the demand curve. From here we can get the supply curve. If price is greater than marginal cost, okay, the utility that we are receiving from the good is more than the marginal utility, then we will continue to demand that good until the marginal utility is equal to price. The whole basis of this theory is that man is rational. Okay, then the next stage is importance of information decision making. Right, if you don't have the right information, then that will then lead to market failure, which is a misallocation of resources, e.g. processed food. Right, we may not realise how bad it is for us. This has negative externalities, increases the cost for the NHS. Asymmetric information, e.g. in the banking crisis, the government, the regulator did not know what was going on. We can also argue that even the chief executives of the banks didn't even understand what was happening. So we can also use an example of the banking crisis or selling second-hand cars. This then creates market failure. This then leads to misallocation of resources and does not take into account negative externalities. So because of this theory of rational man, we then have this other theory that came on board, and this was put into the syllabus in 2017 for the first time, behavioural economics, which depends upon the emotional and psychological factors, the environment, the context in which you make decisions. Okay, so very, very quickly, we want to change people's behaviour. This is a low-cost method of doing it, and you still give people a choice. Libertarian paternalism, if you remember that word, where you are paternal, you try and give people the right advice. However, some people would say that this is really coercive, and the government is really manipulating people's minds. This started in 2008 with David Cameron and the Behavioural Insights team. Okay, but these are all the different biases, which are the reasons why people do not make the rational decisions. We can add more to these, like herding, present bias, default bias. Boundary rationality, some decisions are so complex, we don't have enough processing power to make them. Boundary self-control, a lot of people are addicted to sugar. Supposedly sugar is 8 times more addictive than cocaine. People do not take out pensions. In the short term, this is wrong because in the long term, it's a much better idea for us. Rule of thumb, default bias, we just continue to do what we've always done because you don't want to change it. Anchoring, we're placing too much information on one piece of information. Availability bias, I would then talk about housing crisis. Some of you like to talk about a plane crash, so therefore people don't travel by plane, even though it's the safest form of transport available. Social norms, at the moment we have a binge drinking culture in the UK, although we now have a social norm that it is not good to drink and drive. People recognise that that's a pretty stupid idea. Altruism is based on kindness, and social fairness is based upon community. Okay, so just remember this, the law of diminishing marginal utility is all about rational man. We get to the point where marginal utility is equal to price, that occurs there. We go beyond that point, then the price is greater than the utility that we receive. You need to tell the examiner that, how that works. Right, e.g. profit maximisation. This is based upon the idea that man is rational. Of course man wants to maximise profits. You could easily get a 50-mark question on imperfect information. Behavioural economics in action. Okay, this bit is missed off here. Questions that man is rational, but there are biases, so therefore we need to create policies. Nudging, not a shove, remember. A nudge is we're trying to push people in the right direction. Libertarian paternalism. Framing, present information the right way, e.g. school canteens, healthy options at the front. Pensions and organ donation. Okay, then we have default choice, restricted choice and mandated choice. A default choice is a really successful one with pensions. Therefore, you have to physically opt out of a pension. Otherwise, you are automatically put into it. Restricted choice, not giving people too many choices. Otherwise, it becomes too complicated, which links in with boundary rationality. And mandated choice, where you have to make a decision. Okay, so that's section 2 done. Section 5, market structures. It is all about efficiency. Static, allocative, productive efficiency. Sorry, these are both static efficiency, dynamic efficiency, long term. And we also have social efficiency, which occurs where marginal social cost is equal to marginal revenue. You really need one basic diagram for the long run perfect competition. That is it. There are two more: the short run closing down point, and also why you always get to normal profit in the long run. This is the free entry and exit of firms. Monopolistic competition. This is a mixture of perfect competition and monopoly. Therefore, there's brand differentiation. Therefore, it's a price maker. In the long run, though, you also make normal profits. You should be able to draw two of those diagrams. Oligopoly, kink demand theory, but you can use a lot of the monopoly diagrams, economies of scale diagram, and the contestability diagram. And if there's collusion, you act like a monopoly, so therefore it's a deadweight welfare loss. So 3 monopoly diagrams that you can use for an oligopoly, and a monopoly, there's obviously 4 diagrams. Okay, competition theory is based upon the idea that a competitive market is better than monopoly contestability. Certain industries, therefore, we need regulators. That may lead to regulator capture. I know there's a confusion here, but banks could all put on the micro course. It's a really good example of where the regulator got it badly wrong in 2008, 2009. I know it also occurs on the money and banking syllabus for the macro paper, as does behavioural economics is also in there. Okay, so which is the best form of competition? That's what we're looking at. From there, right, I know we're going to miss out these diagrams at the bottom here. We haven't got quite enough room, but this is the contestability diagram, which is just the monopoly diagram, and the price then is equal to the average total cost curve. Okay, monopoly can be good. Okay, there is no static efficiency. You're at the point of productive inefficiency and allocative inefficiency. Therefore, there is a welfare loss, because in perfect competition, we produce at P equals MC. Okay, compared to competition, output is lower and price is higher. This means that there is a massive loss of consumer surplus, which is the whole of this area here, and a lot of that consumer surplus is turned into producer surplus. However, at the same time, this is a welfare loss, because this is an overall loss to society. However, we might get dynamic efficiency. We may also achieve economies of scale. We practice this diagram a lot. Okay, just keep on drawing it. Remember, the key thing you need to say is, in a monopoly compared to perfect competition, without economies of scale, that price is higher and output is lower. Therefore, we don't like a monopoly situation. Perfectly competitive market is better because price is lower and output is higher. So it's better for the consumer, obviously. Rising consumer surplus, but not monopoly. The MC curve with economies of scale, we can get all the way down to here, and then the price is lower and the output is higher. Okay, so that is that particular one. Okay, natural monopoly diagram, we can just draw this one here, can't we? Okay, but it'd be a little bit better maybe, draw a demand line, the LRTC going down there, and the MRC curve, the long run marginal cost curve, must be below that. This is also called the L-shaped cost curve according to AQA, which is where economies of scale always outweigh the diseconomies of scale. And then that is the profit maximising position, but really from society's point of view, we should be at P equals MC. Remember, competition policy, competition is better than monopoly, so therefore we have regulation. Remember, with the banking system, we now have the Financial Policy Committee, the Prudential Regulation Authority, and an independent body, which is the Financial Conduct Authority. They all look at this. Okay, with perfect competition, this is the long run here. So water and rail are both natural monopolies, which you can bring in nationalisation, privatisation arguments, because water and rail have been split up into lots of little monopolies. So they're no longer a natural monopoly. Pretty crazy stuff, really. Oligopoly is probably the best form of competition. Right, but we can draw lots of diagrams. If it's collusion, the oligopoly is acting as a monopoly, deadweight welfare loss diagram. If there is cooperation, you may get research developed and you may get dynamic efficiency. Okay, oligopoly is good, but if we get investment innovation, dynamic efficiency and contestability, then we love a monopoly market. All the kink demand curve theory really says is that there is interdependence in the market. We have to react to what the other firms are doing, and this is why prices are rigid. Remember, if an oligopoly raises its price and nobody will follow, hence an elastic demand curve. If it reduces its price, everyone else will follow, hence an inelastic demand curve. Quite a little tricky diagram to draw that, but that is it. Remember, an oligopoly is a price mechanism. Right, another thing I just want to spend a bit of time on here is competition. Right, the dynamics of competition. So even in a monopoly, if a monopoly is making really high profits, then that will be an incentive for other firms to enter that industry. This is then called creative destruction. So we get a completely new way of doing business. E.g., who would have thought that you could grow a massive amount of crops by using a process called vertical farming? In fact, there's a guy in Norwich who believes that East Anglia could produce enough food for the whole world if we use vertical farming. Okay, so it's a completely new way of doing business. This is a classic example of creative destruction. You no longer need to grow your vegetables in the fields. Okay, so this is a new thing. So if a new idea comes along, so people lose their jobs in the old industry, they then migrate to new industries. Monopoly. Monopoly is an example of making profits, e.g. Amazon. It's a new way of doing business. Who would have thought Airbnb is another example of that? But someone might come along at some stage and displace this firm. So even if a firm is a price maker making massive profits, it doesn't always go that they will always dominate the market. However, if they are dominating the market, then it may well be the case that it needs to be looked into because they have so much power, so much money, that therefore they can afford to buy up all the small little companies, and therefore that stops the competitive process. But really the idea of creative destruction is if there's ever enormous profits, then other firms will move into that area. Tesla is also an example of creative destruction. So even a monopoly can be taken away through creative destruction, e.g. vertical farming. Okay, so then we have objectives of firms, and later on in this course I'm going to be talking about Sir Fred Goodwin, who ran ABS, who massively wanted to grow his company. So when he took it over, it was a fairly medium-sized bank, and then he made it into the largest bank in the world. Okay, in the process, he managed to use 25 billion quid, but his policy was growth, 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 growth. Okay, so good example to use RBS. So we also have a divorce of ownership and control. Just before RBS went bust, they raised £12 billion on the stock exchange. Everybody thought they were doing quite well, but they needed cash, etc. Okay, so then we can draw a monopoly diagram. Right, for some reason I decided to draw the ATC curve here. That's okay. Should normally prefer to draw it somewhere else. But profit max, rational man. So therefore, all firms want to maximise profit. Makes sense. However, some firms go for revenue maximisation or for growth maximisation. So you can draw this diagram. Paragraph 1, paragraph 2, firms also have social objectives, e.g. Riverford, organic farming, e.g. social enterprises. That market is worth £78 billion in the UK, which is quite a high percentage of GDP, about 6 or 7%. Amazon went for growth, right? Even though they were losing loads and loads of money, a bit like Tesla, for the first 10 years, eventually they came on to be market makers, dominate the market. Now, therefore, we may need to control this. The divorce of ownership and control is the owners are the shareholders, and it's controlled by RBS, by Sir Fred Goodwin. Now, the shareholders would not have known what he was getting up to. It's a case of asymmetric information, but it's also a case that he obviously did not maximise profits. In fact, their share price went down from 16 quid to 19p or something like that. Okay, so he lost them loads and loads of money, especially those people who just paid £12 billion for their shares. So A is profit max, revenue max, MR equals 0, growth maximisation. So we then create an essay out of that. What they want is examples. RBS growth, Amazon, Tesla, social objectives. Okay, and then we've also got this discussion about technological change. That's changing all the time. Really cool question on Amazon. So lots of small firms can now join Amazon. So in the way some markets are more competitive, but Amazon clearly exhibits monopoly power. Okay, next one, competition. We want competition, okay? Key, because then we get innovation, dynamic efficiency, etc. A monopoly, other firms will enter the market, creative destruction, new industries come along. This is all part of the competitive process. Old industries close down and new industries come along. New firms move into this area, capital and labour. Okay, contestability is all about the threat of competition. Then you can draw the contestability diagram. I'm sure you could all do that. I'm just making a big point really about creative destruction. Sorry, you won't be able to see this. First degree price discrimination, you all understand that. No consumer surplus at all. Selling houses. Second degree price discrimination. The first people who get on an aeroplane, you charge them a high price and eventually you want to fill it up So you'll charge them a price down here. It will increase the firm's profits, therefore there's dynamic efficiency, but you're changing more consumer surplus into producer surplus. And then with third degree price discrimination, I'm sure you can all draw that diagram. Not a problem at all. Okay, end of. I think. Is that the end? It is.